Welcome to Doctor on Call with your host, DocGriffon. The doctor will be with you momentarily. Our guest this evening is artist and YouTube content creator, Rob LeBlanc. The following interview is conducted in a safe environment and executed by highly trained professionals. Any attempts to copy the superstars and divas' moves in the ring are extremely dangerous and irresponsible. Please do not try this at home. Doc Griffin. Paging Doc Griffin. You're needed in the OR, stat.
And thank you very much, Nurse Cadet. And thanks to everybody who's been kind of weathering this back and forth that's been happening with our guests. So we are plodding forward with a guest that we've been looking forward to getting on. And now everybody out there probably knows him, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. Not Ron, but Rob LeBlanc, also known as Optic Decay. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I saw that and I was kind of like, uh-oh.
I was like, good God, can I just screw up from the start? Thanks. That's just love.
Yeah.
But now of course we'll get into it down the line, but people know who are tuning in that Rob's the creator of the Morning Decay, a very popular show that happens in the morning at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. He hosts it with some guy named Broski.
Well, I would say Broski would be a co-creator of that because that was mostly us going, well, we're up in the morning. I guess we should just keep doing this. All right. That was the bit.
Well, and we'll talk about it a little later, but yeah, you guys definitely do have the chemistry, and that's what's important for a show. But let's roll the clock back a bit. When you were growing up, was it more urban, suburban, rural?
It was that weird like Long Island suburban kind of deal, like right in the middle of Long Island, just It was like one of those things where like people didn't discover pot till they were like 17. It was weird. It was a weird time.
Wow.
It was during the 80s, like during the height of all the, you had your Transformers and G.I. Joe, that whole big period of time where everybody was like into that stuff. So it's a pretty good time.
Now, as you're growing up, how would your parents describe you as a child?
Oh, I was a fucking weirdo. It was one of those things where like my brothers, they were all they did just normal kid shit, and I was the one who was like building like weird forts and like just kind of separating myself from a lot of things that were there, going like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna draw stuff for like the next like 8 hours, and they were just like, there's something wrong with them.
Now, where were you in the line of siblings?
I was the last of 5.
The baby. Okay. Now that the reason why I asked that is that usually makes sense. And I say that because coming from multiple siblings myself, I was the baby. And legitimately, I looked at my brothers and sister and said, well, shit, what's left for me? Fuck it. I'm going left.
Yeah. It was always that thing. Like my brothers were, like one of my older brothers, he was into D&D a little bit. He was into comics, and that was how I discovered comic books at a really early. I was like 4, and he just dumps this box down. And he's like, I don't need this shit anymore. Like, wow. Okay, and it was like a lot of Punisher and like X-Men stuff, and like just a ton of stuff like from the 70s through like at that point it was about 1980. Mid 80s, I guess.
Okay.
And it was it was a weird time because it was like the first comic I read wasn't like a Batman or a Spider-Man. It was a fucking Punisher comic.
Was it from the Zecharon, the Mike Zecharon?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Definitely.
Yeah,
like that and like the Wolverine miniseries that they had with Frank Miller.
Oh yeah. I think Contest of Champions was around there before they unleashed Secret Wars too.
Yeah, that was the cool thing, was like I had Secret Wars like right when it was there, and it was like, all right, this is weird. but it was one of those things where I noticed where it was a cash grab like right away, because that was when I started seeing the action figures, and I'm like, oh, you sons of bitches. That was the point where I lost my innocence. I got really smart, and I'm like, hey, that's a thing.
Oh yeah, I had a buddy still into his 30s trying to collect the complete series for DC superheroes.
Yeah. Especially the Lex Luthor figure that punched himself in his own face.
The one that he was really that he went buck wild about was he found a Hall of Justice, and apparently that it had like a low run, and he was almost weeping as he was checking out.
Well, it wasn't that it was a low run, it was just that it wasn't very durable. Like, it was one of those things where it was like a big piece of plastic, and it had like a bunch of cardboard bits and shit, and the cardboard parts would always go missing because they're just, I mean, it was crap. But yeah, but there was a lot of cool things like that back then.
So would you say that comics was the big influence into your hobby?
To me, it was one of those things where, like, before then it was, you know, it was like your standard cartoons, like your Warner Brothers cartoons, like some of those old Disney ones that, you know, like the Donald Duck ones and stuff. I love those.
Okay, now do you remember the first thing that you ever drew that you were proud of?
I remember it was, oh God, it was something when I was like in kindergarten. I made this. It was like a thing of like GI Joe stuff, but it was, the teacher got so freaked out, dude. And they wanted to send me home and everything. They called my mother, and it was me depicting G.I. Joe if it was like realistic. Because I was annoyed by the show, because every time you saw a plane get shot down, you'd see the guy parachuting down. There was no deaths whatsoever, and all these people never shot each other. So I was actually drawing these G.I. Joe characters actually getting shot, and it was based on my father was in the military. And we would get these they were like these book covers for like textbooks and stuff, and my brothers would use them for the textbooks.
Oh yeah,
and they were like military, like it was sort of like a tip and fact sheet. Like there was a thing about EMTs, and on it was a picture of, I don't know why they use this as book covers for children's books, but it was a military book. Was like, you know, the camo cover, and it had a picture right in the middle of it of a dude with like a head wound. And a guy getting his head wound bandaged up and everything, and I'm like, wait a minute. So that and G.I. Joe, hey, there's no correlation here. So I drew that in kindergarten, and they wanted to send me home.
Was it Roadblock? Did you give Roadblock the head wound?
Oh no, it was the G.I. Joes, you know, just shooting the bad guys, and they were actually getting hit. A lot of scribbles of crayon.
Now, I do have a nice piece of G.I. Joe trivia for you. In the cartoon, how many people actually died?
Oh, shit. I only really recall the movie, you know, had kind of like 2 or 3.
Well, in the actual cartoon series, there was only 1 that ever died. And the reason why was because the animation studio forgot to draw the parachute on him.
Yeah, that's always like the really like fun, because that was the thing was I really started noticing very early on about like production mistakes, and like things where like a transformer would be a different color or something like that, and I would kind of create a mythology in my own head of, because this is when I started actually kind of being more critical and learning how to write. Was I would see like a miscoloring on a cartoon, and I would go, that's a different character. You know, like it'll just be like a blue Optimus Prime. Okay, fine. It's a different guy. And I would just come up with a whole idea for it. And I would sit there, little kid, drawing out how this would actually work, of him being a different character and stuff. You know, it's like, oh yeah, he just hangs out and he runs like a hot dog shack. It's like, you know, whatever. You know, he's just hanging out. I'm like,
now,
I don't know.
Now, if you actually, as a kid, went through an art museum, because where you live, there's a couple of good ones.
Oh, yeah.
Going through an art museum as a kid, what style, what artist fascinated you the most?
I was really into Salvador Dali stuff, but like at that point, I'd never gone to a gallery until it was think it was like in middle school, but it was one of those things where like I watched this documentary when I was like eight or so, where it was this documentary about Salvador Dali, and it was mostly just interviews with him where he was just out of his goddamn mind. And I really, really loved all those really crazy surrealist paintings that he would do. And then it was like like the Picasso stuff. Going through there, it's like I kind of went through the basics of it, where I was like, okay, I like the people who did more weird stuff, because it just seemed like there was more imagination there than going like, hey, look, this thing looks exactly like this thing. I didn't really care. Yeah.
So were you drawn into more of the surreal?
Yes. A lot of abstract stuff. Like when I was when I first started getting into when I got into my AP, like the college level whatever art class, which was a bunch of bullshit. When I got into there, I was in 7th grade or so, and it was straight up like I was just like, at that point I'm just gonna do nothing but abstract stuff. And they're like, aren't you drawing comic books? No, not at all. I'm like, I'm a real artist. What are you talking about? No. I was just like being a fucking prick. But it was, you had all this stuff, and I was going on and on, like, okay, I'm gonna do all this, and I kept doing like a lot of weird surrealist paintings and just weird stuff.
Well,
it was always like a lot of grim stuff where it was like depicting like war, but as abstract things as opposed to being like people, and just like kind of exploring concepts with that, because like when I was really young, my grandfather died, and it was one of those things where everybody was so matter of fact about it, where it was just like, oh yeah, your grandfather's dead. It's like, okay, it's the early 80s. I'm a little small child, and I was sitting inside a fort that I made out of a Castle Grayskull, and it's just like someone just comes in and just goes, oh yeah, your grandfather's dead. And I'm like, I saw him like 2 weeks beforehand. It was like, it was weird. It was a really weird thing.
Was this an eventuality or a surprise?
Absolute surprise. He had a heart attack, died.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what made it so weird, because it was just like, all right. And the way they described the whole scene, it was just always, it always kind of struck me as very weird. So I had I was very disconnected by that concept with that. So it was always me just trying to explore, going like, everyone gets sad when this stuff happens, but over here they're just like, whatever. It was weird.
And I do have to pause for just a moment. We have somebody new in the chat that I had to throw a wrench to. Welcome, Adonis Paul.
Hey, what's up, AP?
What would you say was your moment of crystallization? How old were you when you said, you know what, art, this is me. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue this passion.
I was 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's just like, like I was really into science. I was really into like just a lot of different things, but it was like the art thing was just something I just did mechanically, sometimes even without thinking. I just did it. I could be sitting there just kind of bored and just all of a sudden have a bunch of stuff just already like drawn out, and it weirded people out, because it was just like, oh, how are you able to do this? And I'm just like, I don't know, I just do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, especially when it comes to the arts, like, hey, I can draw that. Hey, I can write this. And then all of a sudden they find out that there does take innate skill and some training, but you really have to have that personal foundation of having that ability and that passion and able to pursue it and go farther.
That was the thing. I never really had any formal training whatsoever.
You're a natural.
Well, it was more that I just kept doing it, and then I learned that way. I just kept, like, okay, like figuring out like anatomy. It was like, how did I learn anatomy? I learned it from my father had a lot of medical journals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of books that were just medical related stuff. So you had lots of charts and diagrams in there. So like, damn, that was how I was learning where the muscle groups go and where everything, where organs go and shits. Why like, you know, now I do a lot of horror related stuff, and sometimes, you know, organs might come into it, and I'm like, I know where they go. I know what happens when they fall out. It just kind of it fed into that whole thing that became like, oh yeah, you know, I like doing, you know, things that are a little more horror bent, and, you know, doing that because it's like, it's fun to just see people get a little unsettled by it.
Yeah. Well, you want art to affect people.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you don't get a reaction, you basically just fucked up your whole job.
Well, we'll show it later, but I think one of the ones that's not gore that you got a huge response from was Boogie doing the flying squirrel.
Yeah.
That one was pretty awesome. You got to
flying over the Windows field.
Yeah. That was wonderful, and we'll show that a little bit later. We'll start the scroll. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it at the bottom of the hour. But just to make sure, anybody tuning in who has not encountered Rob before, down in the descriptor, we do have his Twitter. We also have the YouTube and the TeePublic. So please feel free, stop by and take a look. If you have not subscribed to Rob yet, please do so. And if you haven't watched the Morning Decay, then what have you been doing with your mornings? That's down in the prescription for additional entertainment. So there's a link down there where you can click on it. That'll take you straight to the channel. Now, one of the things that I've always found with artists, particularly artists, is a certain amount of OCD, not being able to let go of like for me, it's writing. It's hard for me to let go of a script or a story because I'll reread it and go, well, wait a minute, let me just tweak this or let me tweak that, and that becomes the snake biting the tail. Do you ever have any difficulties with being able to say, okay, this is done, time to let it go?
I always used to have a real big problem doing that, where I was just like, okay, I keep doing something, and I wanted to be as perfect as it could possibly be. But then as I got older, it just got to the point where, like, you know, sometimes you really have to abandon your children at the Walmart. That's what I call it. Okay. You know, you just go, you know what? Like, at some point, like this because it's one of those things that when you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it, you know, as a hobby, or you're doing it like that, where you're just fucking around, you're drawing stuff, you want it to be as perfect as possible, and you don't want to show it until it's absolutely exactly how you want it. I understand that. But me, when it became all about deadlines and like having to get, you know, things done within a certain period of time, or like if someone commissions me to do something, or I'm working for a company or something like that, it becomes the thing where I go, yeah, at some point I got to abandon this child.
Well, and yeah, let's talk a little bit about commercial art, because I'll be honest with you. I've done a lot of writing for content generators, and that's essentially just cranking shit out that people are. You know, you have to use this word. You have to use these 5 keywords, and it's got to be 100 words long. When you got into that realm of commercial art, did you find any comfort in it? Was it restrictive for you?
It really depended on the client, really, but a lot of it, you know, could be very restrictive. It's just like, oh yeah, do this, but you know, you have to do it in like an anime style, and I'm like, okay, good, I guess I'll do that now. I just get real. It's one of those things, hey, do this cutesy thing, and I'm like, yeah, I could do it, but it's not gonna be, you know, something that like I could really put my mark in, because I'm like, it's just because if I'm not into the job, it's like, yeah, I'll do the job, and I'll do what I have to do, because I'm like, hey, I gotta pay bills. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm not gonna be happy with it one way or another. So I'm just like, okay, I will get the best I can out of it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you just like, here you go. Hope you like it. Like this is what I can. And people are like, yeah, absolutely love it. I'm like, great. I hate it, but okay, here you go.
Thanks for the paycheck.
Yeah, thanks for the money. And then I go on, and I do like the next thing. Someone goes, oh yeah, I want to do like this horror thing, and I'm like, all right, I'm down. Yeah. It's
now,
like, oh.
Now, have you ever heard the story of Neil Adams' sketchbook?
Oh, which one? because I heard a couple of stories. Because Neil Adam had he has some great stories.
Well, yeah, he used to. From what I have read, he used to keep a morgue that was nothing but positions of arms and legs and torsos and head motion.
Oh yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, because that technically would not be considered cheating because you're drawing it yourself. But
well, sometimes here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with using reference. You know, like I'm not talking like not tracing. I'm talking like like using like reference to like have that in mind or have it next to you to go. Okay, this is how I do this thing, because sometimes it might be a little hard to remember where a certain muscle goes or whatever. It could happen. You can have that that boomer moment where you go, all right, whatever, or stuff like me. I keep a lot of I have a lot of behind the scenes like art book kind of stuff, like a Venture Brothers one. I have one for the old He-Man stuff because they did a lot of great paintings in that period of time. So it's like a lot of stuff like that and design documents, because I'll keep it around as like a reference, and I'll make my own reference for things just because. But like there's nothing really inherently wrong with it. It's just a quirk that we do. It's just you go, all right, make all this stuff. You never intend to do anything with it other than going, hey, I can look at it and go, oh, wait, I can't remember this thing. Okay, this thing.
Well,
nothing too crazy.
Of course, you're going to have to do reference if you're doing people's avatars, too.
Yeah. I mean, that always becomes a thing where it's like, like whether you're doing like a tribute to something or whatever, it's just like it's okay, to like to some extent to like you're gonna have to use reference to stuff, especially like if I drew like your avatar, it's like okay, like I would do something similar to that. Like what is it, the Invisible Man?
Yeah, technically it's a mix between Unknown Soldier and Invisible Man.
Well, I just saw the tie, but it's like the Unknown Soldier. It's like, yeah, I get it with the wraps and everything, but he has the tie and shit on, so it's like, oh yeah, kind of Invisible Man-ish.
Well, yeah, the war's over. He had to find a job.
Yeah, he's an insurance salesman now.
Yeah, pretty much. Alcoholic by day, broadcaster by evening.
Yeah,
but and this is one of the things that fascinate me. Because I think no, because that would be getting ahead. So you're in the business world. You're taking care of business. What point do you get to where you take a look at a place like YouTube and say, you know what, I want to try to find a home there?
How that happened was a really kind of it was weird, because it was one of those things where like the people I was talking to at the time, it was like I was just like I got sick for a couple of years. Like I have ulcerative colitis, which is an ongoing illness. But the big thing was that I had really bad anemia, and it kind of knocked me out for like 3 years. It was just a lot of medical crap that I went through. And when I came out of it, it was kind of like, all right, I gotta start rebuilding all this stuff and getting back to work and doing everything I need to do. And how it ended up, becoming a YouTube thing was, it was like with the Kumite, that was going on, and I know a lot of things are weird now, but it was one of those things where like I did some art, but then what happened was, Failure actually. He contacts me and he goes, you need to make a YouTube channel. And I'm like, why? I'm like why? He's like, yeah, you should probably start streaming, doing like a drawing on online or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So it was, I randomly I'm like, how do I do this thing? Because I have no idea. So I figured out how to do everything. And I just started streaming with my wife, where I would just draw things. And that was kind of how it started. It was like I didn't really have any intention of going and making a show, or like I was just like, someone said I should go do this, so maybe that's a good idea, so I did it.
Well, and honestly, I remember tuning in the like midday when you were running those shows. You know, basically, I'm always have been fascinated with the creation process, so I was immediately hooked. And yeah, I do remember the initial shows. I mean, it's one of those where you're getting your feet under you. But
where Baron used to come by and tell me to keep drawing bears in it.
yeah,
You just go, stop doing what you're doing and draw some fucking bears. It's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, but you honestly got some good support early on. I'm not talking about myself, but other people who were quite a bit bigger, with the encouragement being basically saying, keep on and keep doing this, ribbing you all the time. That's, how important was that to you to continue on YouTube?
To me, it was one of those things where it was just a weird, surreal thing because I'm like, I watch the guys' videos, I watch like other people's videos, and I'm like, all right, these people are right, like them all, whatever. But I didn't expect them to actually come and watch the dumb shit I was doing because I was talking about such bullshit. They're just like, hey, I like comic books and I like this thing over here. It's like, it's very simple kind of stuff. So the fact that like my first stream, I had like 15 people watching it, and that was a fucking trip. And then it was like, I did it like 2 weeks later, and it was like, oh hi, here's 35 people. I'm like, all right, this is getting fucking weird, dude. I was like, what's wrong with all these people? Like okay, they're spending an afternoon with a guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, what are we doing here? And then at that point, I was doing it for a little while, then I just stopped for a few months. I was just like, okay, I'm not really, getting any headway. Things were kind of staying the same. And I'm like, I'm just going to go do something else because I was working on comic books at the time that later got abandoned. But it was one of those things where I was doing these projects and stuff. And one day I get contacted to be on Failure in the Morning. This is a couple months later. And, Broski got contacted to be on Failure in the Morning as well. And we at that point didn't really know each other all that much. Like we talked and everything, we were friendly, but like we never, like I went on his show a couple times and it was like, all right, yeah, cool guy. But like we got in there and we did the Failure in the Morning, and it was just like, all right, well, like that's cool. Like the first day he didn't even show up, so he sat there like, okay, I guess we're just going back to sleep then.
I kind of remember that one.
But the fun thing was we did the episode the next day, and it was like, okay, we did the show. That went all right. And then the next day, nobody showed up again. And we were just like, we're already awake. He's like, you got OBS up? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'll put on OBS. We'll just do something. And we ended up doing our first show together for like our first like show of just us for 7 hours a day. It was a really fucked up day. That was when everything got really stupid, and a lot of things I don't really want to get into with certain people. But it's one of those things where like a lot of things got really just kind of silly. And after that, we were like, we should just keep doing this. And then that's what became the Morning Decay thing. Was like that weekend I slapped together some graphics, and I was like, all right, well, guess we're throwing a fucking title on it and doing a thing. Well, because I think we called it artistic screeching. Before it, so
I forget. I made something up, which didn't make the cut, but yeah, it didn't. Basically, had the word autism in it somewhere.
Yeah, it was something like an autistic screeching kind of thing, but it was like artistic screeching. So it's like it was artistic, but it was autistic. So it's a weird thing. But I remember a dude, Jack Dunham. He was around, hanging around a bit in the early days. And he was like, you guys should name the show The Morning Abortion. And he sent me a picture of a mug with a baby head in it.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Dude, that's still like, dude, I'll look through these folders and that gets me every fucking time. Just the Morning Abortion with Optic and Broski. I loved it. It was good, man.
Yeah, because he was the first. I was the second, I think, because I sent the Shango the Pooh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like one of those things where like it's like you kind of make it when people are immediately making memes of the dumb shit you're doing, because like to us it was just like, all right, like we're just gonna do this, no idea of like how it's gonna work or how it's gonna be successful. we literally went in with no plan. We just went, we're up in the morning, so why don't we just yell at people in the morning?
Well, no. Here's the thing, and
Yeah.
I think the audience who may not know, it was just simply a failure didn't show. You were sitting around with Broski and just said, "Fuck it, let's just do this."
Yeah.
And was the chemistry immediate? Because
Pretty much.
Because I'll be honest with you, I was sitting back watching the show, and I was like, "Damn, these guys click. I like this."
It was one of those things where it was like I'm sitting there, I'm like when for going into it, I'm like I'm nervous about it because it's like I know Brosi, I was in a server for a while, you know, like at the time, you know, we were friendly, and you know, like, you know, I did a show a couple times. It was like one of those things where like we were friendly, everything's cool, but I didn't know how well it would work, because I know when I made the 2 appearances on a show, it was like, all right, this is great, you know, like, he's a good dude, and then it was just like at that point, I'm like, all right, I guess, you know, whatever. But then when we both got in there and we're just like, okay, now we have to deal with each other, it's like, all right, we cool. Like, I mean, it's even worse to this day. Like, to this day, it's like he'll show up like 5 minutes before, and we're just like, hey, you know, like, you know, what's going on? And they're like, yeah, let's just fucking go. And we don't plan anything. We just go.
Yeah.
And it worked.
In the words of Chuck Reardon in the chat, fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, that is literally like, okay, sometimes we'll take a little long because usually it's like, hey, like, you know, we'll talk about whatever bullshit, you know, going on, or I'll bring up maybe like because lately I've been doing a little news stuff here and there because I have an injury where I'm kind of like trying to not stress the arm too much, so I'm like, okay, I gotta kill like a couple minutes here, so I'll throw in a news story or something like that, you know, just to keep stuff moving along. And I would do that, and it was just like sometimes I would go, hey, I got this story, whatever. But past that, we don't really plan anything other than the Chris Benoit Father's Day special.
Yeah, I think I contributed to that one too.
Yeah, that was a great fucking show, and I can't wait till we get to this year's. That's gonna be a great fucking show. It's gonna.
So it's going to be an annual event then.
I assume so. I'm like, it's Father's Day, and who's the best dad in the world but Chris Benoit? He leaves Bibles next to your head. He's a good dude.
Damn straight. and towels to get rid of bruising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's up?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing, is like a lot of our, like, how that Chris Benoit Father's Day special came was actually like that first week was just like I randomly just said, hey, you know, like Chris Benoit Father's Day special. And like we just sat there, we're just goofing on Chris Benoit jokes and like just being like, you know, gallows humor. Oh, dude, and it just became a thing. Yeah,
immediately when you guys started riffing on this.
Yeah.
That's when I jumped into meme mode, and I was like, oh yeah, and I did the Bowflex thing.
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where like we just sort of just say shit and it becomes a thing, where it was like when we fired JF from the show.
Oh god, yeah.
JF has had no contact with any of us, like, ever. Like I have no prior history with the guy or anything. I never watched his shit. And it's just one day I just go, yeah, you know, just like that time we fired JF from our show, and people were like, what? And so people, like, he was streaming at the same time. And I think that's why it happened. It was like he was streaming at the same time, and someone just mentioned it. I was like, all right. So people went over there and they started asking him about like why he got fired from my show. And he got really mad at it. Which I found really fucking hysterical, because he started banning people who mentioned my show, and I'm like, we're a show. We have like, I think at the time it was like 60 people watching us, and it was like, all right, this guy who has like 1,000 people is really pissed at this little tiny show that no one cares about.
Well, dude, because and it was because of that very day that he blocked me on Twitter.
Yeah, he was kind of going on a bit of a spree, but I think the funniest thing was months later, in recent months, we were all just sitting around in Discord, and it was like we were done with the show and we were kind of bored, and it was like, hey, JF's on. And I was like, all right, like, why do I care about that? and then fucking they started going into the fucking chat mentioning the show name again, and he pauses the show to fucking like tell people like, yeah, bringing the Morning Decay meme and fucking throwing them out and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, why is he so fucking mad?
Oh yeah, he went ape shit, and that was I mean that's part of the Morning Decay lore now.
Yeah, here's the thing. I use it as it's like there's a promo video for the show that Stefan Corbino made. He's a great dude. Where
yeah, I like Stefan.
Where it's just him, just like yeah, Ben from the Morning Decay with the Morning Decay meme and all this shit. But then there was another one where they went at him, and he went off for like a good 2 solid minutes, calling us mentally retarded, and that we were a low viewership stream, and that, you know, like how terrible we are. But it's like, dude, if we're that fucking terrible, why are you actually stopping the show to talk about us?
True.
He's so goddamn triggered. Oh man. So sorry if I sound weird. I'm kind of sick today, so
you know. No, you're doing good, brother.
All right, good.
By the way, let me go ahead and kick up that scroll so we can roll some art, shall we? Now, if there's anything that you want to comment on, too bad, because you're going to be 20 seconds down the line. But you know, if you
I'm also not directly watching the stream because I'm terrible like that.
Well,
I have like 3 browsers open. It's all a fucking mess here.
well, you're kind of like everybody else, so you're all right with that.
Right on.
We don't get a lot of people watching, but we do get a lot of people listening eventually. Now,
good thing.
Let's talk a little bit about. I don't know any other sensitive way around it, so I'm just going to hit it hard. About losing and gaining fans. Basically your audience. Now, there are several people that come to mind that legitimately go into a panic when their fan base drops and fluctuates. Is that anything that worries you or sticks in your craw?
It never really worried. Like I know a lot of people have like said that, like, oh yeah, like he look at him, he's mentioning subs, like, oh, he really cares. I'm like, I didn't really care about that. It's like, if you don't want to hang out, then don't. I don't you know, you do whatever you want, man. Because I'm still gonna keep doing what I'm doing. You know, whether it's to 5 people or 500 people, it's gonna be me doing the same shit. So I never really looked at it as this big, super important thing. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to be super successful and have, you know, millions of fans all over the place. But I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. You know, like even if it's like 10 people the next day, it's fine. Like okay, whenever we brought up subs, it wasn't to like be like, oh look, we're upset about like, oh, the numbers are dropping and all this stuff. I mean, circumstances happen where sometimes things go up, things go down. It happens. But you know, we fell out of favor with some people, and it wasn't a good sign. Well, but it was one of those things. But it was one of those things that at the end of the day, I did a drawing on the show of us celebrating. I think it was us celebrating different numbers that we were crossing out, and they were all going down.
actually, when you started talking about this, that's when that picture came up.
Oh, well, shit. Well, there you go. But yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like we goof on it. Like people, I don't know. It's people took it like way too serious, and they took it to heart. Oh, they really care. And it's like, no, it's, you know, if you're gonna go somewhere, it's like, I'm like, hey man, it's all good. Like, can I like, I mean, I see you going away. Can I come with you? I mean, you know, go get some burgers or something. I don't know. You know, it's like, I don't really. I'm not one of those people who really sits there and measures success by a number next to my name. You know, like to me, it's like, hey, is there people that really enjoy what I'm doing? Yes. Do they show up every day? Not every day, but if they do, it's appreciated.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I feel kind of guilty because I know when you guys were starting the first Morning Decay, I was in the Discord. And I was just like, yeah, man, if you need me, then yeah, I'll pop on and provide some color. And you guys, from Jump Street have never ever needed me, and and I'm not saying that in a bad way, because you guys handle your business. You're entertaining. You do things that people enjoy, and that's one of the kind of things that kind of sticks in my craw. Not only the fact that since my sleep schedule has kind of changed, and so I'm not able to catch you guys as often, but the fact that if you're at 100 people watching, if you're at 10 people watching, which of course that really never actually happens, but I'm just using it as an example.
Oh, it got a little low this week. Yeah, it was like 20 people. I'm like, all right, you know. Here's the thing. I'm glad you showed up. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm like, hey, you know what? You know, if you're here, whatever, because we don't really do the drama stuff. We don't really dwell on. I mean, hey, sometimes it comes up. It's just gonna happen. But like most of the time, I'm more like, hey, I just want to bullshit with people. I want to sit here. I want to do the art stuff for people.
By the way,
past that,
it just came up. I just wanted to compliment you on that Krang picture.
Oh yeah,
that you did. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun thing, and the funniest thing was I didn't have the whole bottom part of the picture. Like really didn't plan on it, and someone just goes, because this is the beauty of having a show like that where it's like people can actually like say something to you. Was I was doing it, and someone just said, "Where the fuck are the Ninja Turtles?" So I threw them in like last minute. It kind of looks it too, but it was just one of those things where it's just like you're drawing Krang and you're doing all this stuff. Like you should have the fucking Ninja Turtles on a rooftop or something like that. Like, what are you doing? You're fucking up, man. Like, okay,
yeah, but you know, I like it every time I watch. I enjoy the fact that it's technically. Well, to me, the best phrase I can use is improvisational art. Because there are some times where you get some weird shit. Like, what was it? I was one of the dumbasses.
The other day we actually sat there and I drew nothing but Chinaman versions of everyone. It was just a random fuck. It was basically like Broski had it was an episode. He has a show on Sundays called Wake and Bake. Mm-hmm. Everyone should check that show out. It's fucking great. It doesn't have me on it, so if you guys don't like me, it's perfectly awesome. But it's one of those things where like that show they were doing a there was a thing where people were mad that white people were celebrating Chinese New Year, so white people on that show celebrated Chinese New Year. And then I did a little caricature of Broski as a Chinese stereotype.
Gotcha.
You know, just whatever, just being goofy. And then like we're doing the morning show, and I was like, that shit was so fucking funny. I'm just gonna draw everybody as Chinese stereotypes. So I drew it myself. I drew Blackout. A couple other people. I think Killing Joke ended up being a Chinese guy. There was a there was a Chorgan one. It was hilarious. It's like one of those things where it might be offensive to some people, but it's at the same time, it's like I'm not there to, you know, cause any offense or anything, but it happens. So if it's gonna happen, you might as well lean into it and be funny.
Yeah, I remember you were doing you wanted to do Jerry Lawler dabbing.
Yeah, with a elevator full of period blood. Yes.
Yeah, I came up with the. I threw it in the chat, and I couldn't believe that you guys actually did it. And I love that point that you guys have on Morning Decay about interactivity with the chat. Can you go into it? How important is it to you that regardless if it's 20 or 2,000 people watching, how important that interactivity is with your art?
Well, it's been a really, like, from the very start, it was always a very big part of the show where you had because like people come in there and they're like when I start off the day, because mostly the way I look at it, because there's a thing that that a lot of common people do, like when the first thing you do in the morning is like if you're gonna like do a bunch of work for the rest of the day, you know, you're gonna do like 20 like, you know, 10-15 hours like drawing shit all day. Usually you have to do some warm-ups. You got to get yourself kind of, you know, ready for the day.
Sure.
And I looked at the stuff that I do in the morning as sort of like me doing warm up stuff. I'm not really looking to do the best pieces of art on the show. If it happens, it happens. But if it's mostly just me kind of fucking around to kind of get the rust out for the day, because you know I'm an older gentleman at this point. But the way I looked at it was like, okay, I'm doing that, and I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to draw today. So a lot of times I'll sit there and I'll go, what do you guys want me to do? And somebody will just, you know, they'll say some shit, and I'm just like, okay, so you want this? How can I make it worse? and it's like, how can and it was just like, and then I would do it, and I would go, okay, now how can I make this even worse? So that's how Tater ended up being in that Jerry Lawler drawing, and as I made middle schooler jokes about Jerry Lawler.
and honestly, I still love the inclusion of T-Wack.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was. He's kind of a mainstay.
And I think you've got a very nice crossover audience. I think it's brought in by those who enjoy the art, like myself, the whole creationist thing, watching from beginning to end. To me, it's hypnotizing. And then you have somebody like Broski, a complete and total wise ass, and there is no dead air. And
well, I try not to, dude, especially when he go. It's like, oh hey, I gotta get coffee. I'm like, okay, so I guess I gotta talk for like 2 minutes. So I'm sitting there, I'm drawing. I'm like, yeah, I guess I do this, and then just spilling air.
Well,
because
I was gonna ask you how important Broski is, but
no, here's the thing. Morning Decay couldn't happen without him. Like, it's one of those things where it would have just been me doing those streams with my wife, or just, you know, just random screw around stuff that I was just doing at the time. Like, it would have just stayed doing that. It was the fact that Broski, like, when we sat there and we were like, okay, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, we're both awake, we fucking hate everything, let's just do this thing. And it was like, all right, from the fucking get-go, he's absolutely been a major important part of the show. And times when he's, you know, he couldn't be there, it definitely showed, because it was just one of those things where we have that way we go back and forth with shit. Even if we fucking argue with stuff on the show, it's just, it works.
Well,
you know.
And I'll say up front, I love Allie. She's a sweetie. But yeah. When Broski came in, it just felt like there was an automatic click. When I watched that first show,
I'm not gonna bang
you're
him.
Talking about, it was like there was no barrier, there was no pickup speed, nothing. You guys hit the ground, all four wheels going 110 miles an hour.
Yeah. It was just one of those things, because like my wife is, you know, she's not really, like, you know, someone who's really used to doing this kind of stuff. Not really, you know, more of a civilian. It's a weird way to term it. It's a weird term I use, but it's sort of like when you're not like in all this shit, you know, for better or worse.
Well, yeah.
I mean, some people call it a normie, but like, she's not really a normie. You know, she's actually pretty cool. It's just one of those things where it's like, all right, it's not totally like her speed to sit there and do a 3-hour show where we're just sitting there saying really horrible things and goofing on dumb shit.
It's funny though, because Allie was in effect the first person who actually helped to get me banned on Twitter for the first time. So I thank her for that.
Hey, honey, Doc thanks you for getting a banned on Twitter. Yeah, she's right across from here, just confused.
Oh no, she knows what it is. It was the whole Magic Mike thing.
Oh, okay.
Because I went at Mike hard, because I'm like, you don't fuck with Allie. But then again, you know what? If there was a fight breaking out, I think Allie would be downing more people than I would. So
hey, she actually works out, so you know.
Yeah, mine was a superfluous gesture. So I'm okay with that. By the way, guys, in 10 minutes, we're going to be opening up the Q&A. So if you have any questions for Rob LeBlanc, Optic Decay, please feel free and get those ready, and we'll load them up in the chat, and we'll ask them as they come. Now, one of the things that, well, let me just say it from this angle. I was doing IRS just because I'm a literal insomniac and I was bored. And I kept seeing Cadunt in my chat. And I went ahead and asked her on. And the moment that she came on, everything clicked. Do you think that the Morning Decay would have been a thing without Broski?
No, not really, not at all. Because it was one of those things where it just kind of happened, but it worked out so well. Because it's like, you know, like I mean, he's described himself like, oh, I'm just the chat monkey. Like I'm only here to just like do that. And it's like no, like you're an essential part of it. It's like it's like I'm drawing stuff, but I'm also a very awkward person. Like I'm not the most outgoing dude around. And it's just, you know, it's because I'm the artist guy who does all this stuff. Like I'm mostly used to doing a lot of shit very solitary and very quiet. Or like trying to amuse myself by, you know, humming shit at myself. It's like, you know, it's like that's just kind of how my day is. So with him, it's like there is no Morning Decay without either one of us, you know, in that, because he brings a lot more to the table than he says. You know, and he's been a great dude to me. So yeah, you know, it's just it's definitely one of those things where I'm like I got really lucky in that respect, that it actually was like, you know. Because at the time it was like I didn't know him that well. I know him, but, you know, but like we were friends. But it was like I didn't know him in that way where it was like, oh yeah, like we're doing this thing, and we're working every day and doing this shit. And like that's where you really kind of get that real feel for somebody. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This would not happen without him.
No,
You know, like if I break my hands tomorrow, the show would still happen if he shows up. So, you know,
well,
regardless.
And yeah, I think the art is a nice hook, but
Yeah.
I think the chemistry between the two of you is much better.
Well, there's a lot of people that will just listen to the audio portion of it. You know, like while they're going to work or they're in their car or whatever. Like people are actually like, you know, watching the show or listening to the show in ways that people used to, you know, like with radio.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
oh yeah, you know, like they would do the talk radio thing, and apparently it works as that too. So, you know, that's a testament to Broski being that goddamn good. That, you know, it brings out we bring out the best of both of us, even when, you know, we're both way too fucking tired or just don't want to deal with shit. We're just like fucking like, all right, let's fucking do this, and then we fucking do it. And we have a really great fucking show.
I honestly cannot disagree with that. I think regardless if the visuals are not there, the banter is. And that's something that's rare and unique. And just to do a little bit of a rant, I get so frustrated when I see all these talented people providing content on YouTube, and they're not getting the views that in my addled brain I think that they should have. I mean, you guys with what you do should be up around the thousands, the tens of thousands.
Well, we did hit 1,000 about 14 times.
Oh no, I was there when you drew the picture for the celebration cake or celebration pizza. Man. Sorry.
And you know what that was based on? It was based on that news story about the kid who had a pizza party and no one showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Hey, it's our pizza party. No one's here." Because, you know, it was a fun goof. But I'm not even fucking joking. We hit it 14 times, and then people were just like, "Fuck it," and just left. You know, and then they would come back. And I remember the last time we actually hit 1,000 again. Tommy C was in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, "Hey, congrats on hitting 1,000." I'm just like, I didn't have the heart to tell him it was like the 14th time. I'm like, "Hey, thanks, Tommy."
I mean, has there been, in your opinion, any forward movement as far as Do you want to do something else with the show? Is there a right or a left turn that you would try to take? Or is this your comfort zone, what you guys are doing right now?
Well, the idea right now is currently I've been kind of teasing little things of a sort of deconstruction idea of how the show goes and everything. More or less, I kind of want to keep that, at its core, the same as what it is, but just kind of do a little more with it. Do a little more long term, because some people really like me doing the long term projects while we bullshit it back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So the next big project is I'm gonna put over the boys again, a Las Cruces Wrestling related image that is going to be the next like long term project that'll be up as something at some point. But the idea is like I'm going to do that. I'll probably start posting little teasers about that. But the idea is that I'm going to be doing a whole redesign of the show. And I'll be adding extra streams where I'm just going to do like my actual job outside of things, where that's going to be the more in-depth, like it's basically just going to be me and the artboard and me doing, actual work, doing stuff like that. And then I also have an edited series of things coming together where I'm going to do some tutorials for things. And also me and my wife are going to fight regularly, because it was one of those things where my wife, she was part of the channel to begin with, and I'm like, I should do something with her, and I'm like, I have a whole bunch of fighting games on Steam, so I'm like, maybe we should just like play fighting games and just be like complete assholes and just edit it down and make it like a 20-minute thing, every week.
Well,
that'd be kind of a cool thing.
Well, I do have to say that I was kind of disappointed with Las Cruces. I spent like the first 3 episodes, and it's technically the same thing as the world famous flea market, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with that.
Well, that's generally the idea, because the world famous flea market stopped doing their thing.
No, they're back now.
They're
they
back
got their
now?
channel back.
Well, I don't know. I really like the Las Cruces thing, and they are trying different things. There's going to be a big season finale starting tomorrow night, where I hope it's tomorrow night, that I'm going to be on. I'll be on with that one. And we are finishing up Jack History Month on that thing. I mean, for the most part, it's like I'm not in on like a lot of that stuff, but like, they're good dudes, and they're trying to do something with it. It's only just the beginning of it. Wow. And when they because they're going to go take a break for a while, and then when they come back, they're going to evolve it into more of a thing. Like, this was literally a thing that came up, and it was like, hey, let's just watch old stuff, and it was like, I was like, all right, it's cool.
Well, yeah, because I was like, okay, I popped for the trailer, definitely.
Oh, I mean, he's a great editor, I'll tell you that much.
And I was like, okay, great. If they're going to come in and they're going to do the exact same thing, then
I would
100%.
I would just say about it is stay tuned for it, because there's a lot of stuff. Just like, you have no idea how much stuff is coming out of that. There's a lot of people that are doing multimedia projects related to the thing. So it's going to grow.
Well,
and I'm gonna have a small piece in there doing something. Well, we're all gonna help out.
And technically, through lore, I am the first Smark.
Yeah, right on.
So
I mean, like, I'm like, that's not my gig, really. It's Frodo, Disky, Drax, Broski, and Tater, who's a key component of that. Like, they're the core of that. So if you really want to like get any info from them, you might want to go talk to them and
Yeah,
I'm
not shitting on them, because I'm still looking for great things to come from it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, like, there are things, and one of them is a long-term project that will it'll start making sense when I'm doing it, because it's gonna, like, I'm gonna tie in a few little things, because like Las Cruces Wrestling, I think it's a great idea, and it's gonna be great seeing it grow, because they're a good bunch of dudes. And it's like, yeah, it's similar to a thing, but it's like they're gonna bend it to their will and do something, you know, cool with it.
And I will say, like, every time you do a group picture, I'm like, well, you know, you don't necessarily have to include me, but can you put my feet sticking out behind like I'm passed out drunk?
Oh, well, we'll see about that one, because I'm not the creative director on that one, but
Well,
it's
now,
still.
Well, it's funny because Lord Byron took it and ran with it. So, like,
Yeah.
every other picture, I'm fucking passed out.
Well, for me, it was always Opal. Opal ended up, you would just see the top of her head, or just
Yeah.
you just see a bunch of hair that would just be like just popping up out of the bottom of the frame or something like that. Yeah, it's always fun to do those kind of things.
So we are at the top of the hour, and we've got a few questions. So let's go ahead and dive in, shall we?
See what I can do.
Now the first question, of course, God, if you guys could write in the sarcasm font, I would be able to pick this out a lot quicker. Blackout asks, how did it feel to hit 1,000 for the third time?
Oh, the third time?
The third time.
The third time, it was actually really nice, because at that point, I was at about 1,200 subs at that point, and then things took like a massive fucking dive, and it was like, oh well, I guess I pissed somebody off. You know, because it was just like I saw that happen, and it's like I dipped below, and then it was just like, all right, and then it came back kind of strong. So that third time was really exhilarating. I was like, hey, I didn't completely fuck up. You dick.
Let's see here. Fat Andy asks, is the Mickey suicide art for sale?
It is not for sale, but I mean, I could privately, because I've actually been thinking of doing this as privately making prints, you know, like limited edition kind of stuff, and selling it, like actually like mail order kind of deal, where I could actually sell people prints of stuff, because I can't really just throw it in an online shop because of the fact that it's Mickey stuff. Mm-hmm. But I could kind of treat it like, you know how like people do it like comic conventions. You print a couple up and you sign them or whatever, and you kind of ship them out. Like, yeah, they're doing something like that for a couple of pieces that people would actually want.
Well, Magog just went through the thing with the print of. He drew a print of himself and Poe, and he still has a lot of prints left, but he did make.
It's really goddamn cool. It is definitely really goddamn, like it's one of those, like I really like Magog. He's a funny dude, but yeah, it's like that drawing is actually really cool, because he got himself nailed pretty damn exact, and he did really nice job with the colors on it. I was like, all right, that's actually kind of impressive. I didn't know he could draw.
Oh yeah, in IRS, we went through one of his sketchbooks once, and yeah, it's pretty damn good. Let's see here. Raystone asks, how would you react if it turns out that one of the drawing contests you entered was actually a Last Starfighter style test, and you were drafted into a galactic drawing contest?
Jesus Christ, how the fuck did I would just kind of roll with it, man. You know, I mean, until they start trying to molest me or something like that, I'd be, you know, past that, I'd be like, all right, you know, as long as you're cool and it pays well, you know, I would do it. But if it was for the fate of the Earth, you guys are fucked. Because you know they always got a ringer in those contests.
Let me ask this: do you in your head somewhere have your Rembrandt, have your Da Vinci somewhere where you can kind of see it? It's a little fuzzy, but do you have something that you think you can create to be the ultimate art piece, the ultimate expression of yourself?
Oh, I've been struggling with that for years. It was just one of those things where it's like, it's more of like trying to capture snapshots of how you were at that period of time, you know, doing stuff. And and it could be almost any piece. It's just like one of those things where like there'll be a moment where I'll have that that clarity where I go, like, I'm drawing something, I'm just like, this is how I am at this period, like oh, here's me at 35. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is, you know, and it could be something as dumb as like, hey, it's a drawing of fucking Spider-Man or whatever. But it's like, it'll have something to it to where it won't mean shit to anyone else, but it'll mean a lot to me, where it's like this is like how this is with how I am and how I express myself with this stuff. But like, for the most part, I don't think I've really hit that like magnum opus yet of that kind of stuff, which, I mean, maybe I'll do it this year. I mean, who knows?
Well, and with the artistic bent, it's really hard to say when it will come.
It just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like how the Morning Decay happened. It just does.
Yeah, I legitimately think the best thing that I've ever written was something that it was a piece of bullshit that I had written like the first 3 pages. And I was like, and I just put it away. I pulled it back out at a different time, like 8 years later, and I spent the whole night writing it. I could not stop. And
yeah,
do you ever? Because I've mentioned OCD before, but do you ever get to the point where you've got something in front of you and it's like, you know, get away from me with food and water and bathroom breaks? This needs to be done.
Well, I have this thing where when it usually hits me, it's always at like the stupidest fucking time, where it's like, hey, it's 2 in the morning and I should be asleep, and I have a show in the morning, and I usually get up really early for it. I get up at like, you know, around 6:30 in the morning. I don't know why, I just do. And hey, it's 2 in the morning. You really need to draw Batman right now. And I'm like, motherfucker, you know, like, because then your brain just won't shut off. It's just constantly like, it'll just like, I'll be sitting there and I'll be, you know, getting something to eat or, you know, whatever, just doing normal stuff, and it'll just kind of hit you and go, all right, yeah, you know, you really got to do this like right now. You got to put everything down. Go start drawing.
I completely understand that.
Yeah,
and just real quick before we get back into the questions, if you are new to Optic, I put Rob's links down there, the Twitter link, the YouTube, and of course the all-important TeePublic store, where we can make $2 off of your purchases.
Yeah, I've been exploring new options for that, but right now the TeePublic will stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I never thought anybody would buy anything, and then I kind of got the okay from Medicare, so I started doing bootleg Medicare merchandise. And
well, that was always the big shock with that stuff, where it was like, hey, you know, like, would you guys care if I put up shirts? And they're just like, no, fuck you. And then I did it, and they were like, we really want that one with the moose tank on it, because it just says moose.
The moose tank was pretty goddamn funny, dude. Don't short yourself.
No, but it's just one of those things where it's like, you'd never think of, because that was like really just a brain fart of a fucking drawing. It was like, all right, whatever. I just kind of did it, but then like a bunch of people bought it, and it was weird. It's like there's a bunch of people walking around with moose tank shirts, and you know, half of them don't even know what the context is. But it's like, all right, there's that. And then it was the other one was the comic book cover one, which that was a long term project.
That comic book cover was sweet.
It was like, hey, make up a comic book cover of something that isn't happening, because there isn't going to be a Morning Decay comic. I'm not that fucking vain that I'm going to do a Morning Decay comic about myself. But I do have a new book coming that I'm going to be doing a lot of it live for people.
Yeah.
I mean, the streams will be kind of random, but it's sort of like, you know, hey, if it's a non-spoilery thing, I'll actually draw it on a stream.
Well,
you know, for a couple hours a day.
Well, and technically you've been there watching Blackout do his comic book, and that's just fascinating, completely absorbing.
Well, it's one of those things when you're doing like narrative storytelling. There's a lot of different things that it's different parts of your brains we have to like access. Where you're like, it's sort of like you're becoming your own little movie director, except you're trying to pick out like what key scenes are worthwhile to show, you know, while throwing out all the rest of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like I have to sit for a few weeks and do a lot of thumbnail stuff because I have a rough like idea of like where I want to go with it, but I have a lot of like thumbnail stuff to do, just to kind of get the idea of like how everything's going to be laid out. Once I have all that, I'm just going to fire up fucking streams randomly and just go like, hey, guess what? I'm working today, and then just do it for people.
So can I still do the Commissioner Gordon part?
Well, it's not a superhero book.
I just want to be Commissioner Gordon and drunk.
So you want to be like a hobo with a badge?
Mm-hmm. Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah!
Yeah. The book it's one of those things where it's like it's something that I want to do for a long time, and I really wanted to get back into doing more really nasty horror stuff again, and because it's just like,
are you going EC?
Probably a bit further than that. It's gonna be kind of insane.
Nice.
Well, I'll tell you, the first scene is a body's discovered with his penis cut off and shoved in his mouth.
Oh my.
Yeah. Because basically it was disguised as a sex crime, but it really wasn't.
No.
So that's where the mystery, and then I'm not telling you the rest of it.
No, well,
don't
don't
pay me.
Don't
pay me for that.
I would rather read it. It's kind of fun because Lord Byron tapped me to be the letterer for his upcoming comic, and
right on.
I'm watching. He's sending me pages, and I'm like, this shit is glorious.
What is this, Terry Toughcunt?
Yeah,
I love Terry Toughcunt. He's the fucking best.
Yeah, and he's got the Bogan Ronin too.
Oh yeah, that stuff looks fucking sick, dude.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I do encourage anybody who is looking for a good read. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm just doing lettering on it. That's it. I'm doing my part, and because I think this thing is amazing enough to where it needs a release. It needs to be out there. And
Lord Byron's a madman.
Mm-hmm.
An absolute madman. I love that dude.
He's a cunt.
This cunt.
Hey man, nice shot asks, did you ever have a commission that you regret or were greatly annoyed by, and where you kept having to tell yourself you're getting paid, just get it over with?
Oh well, I don't want to say any particular ones, but
just be generic.
Yeah.
You're okay with generic.
There were a number of them, especially over the past year, that were very. It wasn't that it wasn't content wise. It was just like, it's the whole spirit behind it. It was just like, because I'm like, I don't really want to sit there and do, like, I'm a horror guy, but I don't really want to do like really super hateful shit or indulge in people's weird fucking fetish shit or anything kind of, or just like random events that are happening that have nothing to do with me, but they want to insert me into it anyway, or like whatever kind of dumb agenda they have. There'll be certain people that are just really fucking obnoxious, about that kind of stuff. And here's the thing, I'm like, look, I'm getting paid for it. I'll do the work, man. I'm not gonna fuck with you. But it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, it's sort of like what I said before, where it's like, sometimes you really have to abandon your children at the Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, something that makes you sad in the pants is definitely difficult to get over.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like when you're doing it as a business thing, it's like you're not gonna like everything you're doing. It's just there's no way around that. Not everything is gonna be your favorite thing or something you really want to do. Oh. But it's like when you have a looming fucking bill, it's like, oh wait, guess what? I won't have phone service, or like I need to get some food. It's like you really kind of go, you know what? At least it's not like morally questionable. So I'm like, okay, sure. I'll do it. It's, as long as I'm not compromising myself in that kind of way, I'm like, all right, then it's fine.
Yeah, I did, because I used to do commercial art early on because I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was never really committed. And I did one for the Chamber of Commerce that they still use to this very day. And it was a labor. It was just hard. It was stupid, and I didn't like it. And if you're working with a major company and you turn in 3 logo designs, they're going to be like, well, I like that in number 1, and I like what you did in this part in number 2, and I like this part in number 3. Can you just bring all those together?
Oh yeah, that happened a lot to me. Like whenever it was, I remember I was doing a thing where this guy wanted to, it was something with his computer. But this is a bunch of years ago, and his business is already gone. So I could talk about it a little bit. I'm not gonna give names.
You just got low for a second.
Oh, sorry. All right. Well, it's one of those things where I'm not gonna throw out names on it, but it was a dude I was kind of cool with, and he was like, I have a computer business, right? And I'm like, all right. It's like, I want you to make a logo. And the way he described it was literally a logo for an extermination company out here.
Okay.
But he really insisted on it. Like, I really want this thing, but I want it to have like neon colors. And I'm like, yeah, but like this is the logo of an exterminator out here. And I show him the logo, and he's like, no, well, just make it thinner or whatever. So I do like a bunch of different versions that are like they're enough different to where it's like he's not going to get dinged on any kind of trademark, whatever.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, he absolutely insisted on the actual logo, and he's like, yeah, but it's a computer business, it's completely different. And I'm like, it was like, so I ended up having to give him, because he just insisted on it and was a big pain in the dick about it, to have this logo from an exterminator company as his company logo for his computer business.
Oh,
then he got deported. So,
dude,
I had nothing to do with that.
in the middle of our town, there is a statue that's based on the Chamber of Commerce thing that I drew. And,
right on.
I go by it infrequently, and I just look at it like, God damn, this is a piece of shit. Who would ever want to do this? It's fucking horrible. By the way, thank you, Metaphorist, for calling me the janitor of anarchy. Lord Byron, speak of the devil.
This cunt.
You fucking cunt. Optic, are you still planning on doing a wrestling comic?
Well, it's related to the project I'm currently doing. Not a lot I could really say about it right now, but yeah, let's just say that thing that I just described, that really horrible thing, that has a backdrop of wrestling involved in it. So, yeah, that is actually happening. So, no worries on that one, man.
And I'll be honest with you, I'd love to see your panel work.
Right
on.
Well,
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was waiting for you.
Yeah, I mean, because I see what you do with stills. I see what you do with single frames, and I would love to see what type of, because everything's already been done. So if you're going to be adapting, if you're doing a splash page, what artist is in the back of your mind?
For me, like, one, I'm not a big splash page guy. Like, I'll do it, if it really needs, because there's a lot of people that really just they'll use that, and it's more of them just going, hey, I'm just doing a thing so I don't have to draw 2 different pages. People will do that. Kind of go a little bit more into like the old school stuff, like your Walt Simonson, like how he would do it, where it's like, yeah, if you're gonna do something that's all splash pages, it has to fucking matter. But he used it sparingly at other times where it's just like, you don't have to do it all the time. So I try to lean back from it and use it when it's at most impactful. So I kind of go with that, like Simonson before he did the all splash pages issue that he did.
What'd you think of Jerry Ordway and Dan Jurgens when they were doing that for Death of Superman?
Yeah, like that was actually a really good thing, because a lot of that started with like really small panels, and it just kind of built up to this thing. I mean, the writing was a little, because it was the 90s. What do you expect?
Oh yeah.
But the way they did the design of all that was actually really, really fucking nice.
Yeah, I really do think that there is a lot of art out there, and I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but nowadays people are actually seeing comic books as art.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that like art is involved in it. It's there's no way it wasn't. People look at it as like a dumb medium, but to me, it never was that. Like, growing up and having like, all those, like, the way they used to treat comics back then, it's like, yeah, it was a kid's thing. It was whatever. But like older people read them. I mean, when people came back from the war, what did they have? Comic books. Like that was like, because they gave them the GIs when they're out there, fighting World War II. I mean, they even did it during like Korean War. They were like, yeah, in your rations, like, here's a comic book. They would just kind of throw them in there because it was just like, hey, it's something to do in your fucking downtime because everything is kind of shitty. So here's a little like piece of home. Here's a Superman comic, stuff like that. So it's one of those things where it's kind of a thing for everybody.
Sure.
And the way it's like, yeah, there was a perception of being a childish thing. But for the most part, to me, it never really was that, because like my first exposure to it was stuff that was actually really, for the time, very mature for what it was. It was like, being a little kid and reading, like the Dark Phoenix saga and like the Punisher stuff and fucking Ronin and Watchmen when it first started coming out. It was like, all right, like this is not some little kid bullshit. So it's like people have that perception, but to me, it was always like this is absolute fucking art here. Like I'm a guy who, like as a little kid sitting there drawing this stuff, and I'm like this is modern mythology and art that like some of the shit should be hung up somewhere. And sure enough, some of it did.
I cannot disagree. I was at a place where they were doing an auction, and pages of Kurt Swan's Superman were going for $50 a pop. And
that's an incredible deal, because that shit goes for a lot more now.
Yeah, well, this was late 80s, and it literally made my jaw drop. And I watched Todd McFarlane at a comic book convention because he had to catch up. And he was doing, I believe it was Spider-Man 299. And he was inking it.
He was the very first pro that I actually talked to, and he was an absolute fucking dick.
Now that's weird, because he was incredibly graceful around the audience. I mean,
I guess he was having a bad day, because like when I met him, I was about 13. It was one of those things where like it was at a small convention, and he was just annoyed at everything. It was back when they were doing like they had the Spawn car, like there was like a NASCAR car that had Spawn shit all over it. It was like that period of time where they were really pushing that stuff. I think it was like the first year Spawn came out or whatever, and it was just like straight up like he was just like annoyed by everybody, and I was like I was a young impressionable kid, and I'm like, I really like all the stuff to her, being like a little kid, and he was just like an asshole. I don't know. It was not a good, because it was immediately after he did the shit, and like I gave him some stuff. He's just like, yeah, get out of here. I was like, oh. Yeah, he was just, I would just get the fuck away from me, kid. And so that was when I was just like, yeah, people that work in the industry are fucking dicks. And then it wasn't until a little while later I met Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti.
Uh-huh.
And I always say fucking names wrong. But they were absolutely like the best fucking dudes. It was like night and day.
I would say I had a very good interaction with Joe Quesada.
Well, it was one of those things where I worked with a comic book shop at the time, and I was helping them with the convention. And there was a dude that made appearances at that comic shop often. He was like a local indie comic dude. And he seemed to know everybody. So it was one of those things where it was like, like they were taking a break signing, and I was talking to the dude that I know, and they just came over to the table, and I'm sitting there at this fucking table talking to this dude, and I'm just sketching shit, and there's Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti like, hey man, what's going on? I'm like, shit, because I was a little kid at that point. But it was one of like they were really super encouraging. They were they were like give me little tips on like stuff to do, and like it was one of those like cool little fucking moments where it was like a good half hour of just like hey man, these guys are really fucking awesome. And the best thing was that Jimmy Palmiotti actually recognizes me if I show up to conventions now.
Nice.
It's like 20 years later, and it's like, hey man, what's up? And it's like I introduced him to my wife, and he's just like. He's like, hey, you really outdid yourself, and then he just looks at my wife and he goes, you traded down. like you son of a bitch, But I mean, they're absolute fucking great dudes, but it's like one of those things where like you have your comic. Some of them are very temperamental, and some of them are like whatever. It's one of those. It's like a little microcosm of like how things have just been. In and out of the industry for me, it was you had your people that were absolute dicks that people have completely different stories about. This guy's he's awesome, he's a great fucking dude. Yeah, he might have been to you at that moment, but when I saw him, he was like, I think he needed a bathroom break and a fucking a sippy cup or something. He was fucking mad.
Yeah.
So
the guy who was most positive to me was Dick Giordano.
Oh yeah, Dick Giordano was a fucking awesome dude.
Holy crap! I mean. I have no evidence other than the fact that he gave me a business card and said, if you do want to write, then here's a card. So, yeah. And I mean, he was good to me up until he completely got out of the industry, for apparent reasons, but
well. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's good and there's definitely bad. A Wild Fox Appears asks, do you want to draw a comic? I got the story. I just need an artist with a winky face.
Does it pay?
Can I just throw this out? Somebody at Optics Caliber is going to require a little bank for that.
Yeah, because I mean, that's a major sticking point. Is like like I actually have a page rate and stuff that I mean, it's lower than industry standard, but still, it's one of those things where like because I put in a lot of time in this stuff.
I don't even know what is the pay rate now for pages.
A page rate can be well. I mean, right now, like Marvel's kind of lowering the bar with that because they're just hiring, random people they find on the street.
Yeah.
Like at this point, it's like I mean, like originally it was like people were getting paid. Like if you're talking like top fucking level dudes, they were getting paid like a couple $100 per page. Like just straight up, just a couple $100. Per. Pay, and that's why like that was that period of time when a lot of people were going like, hey, I'm gonna do like a big splash page and do all this shit because they're paying me like $500-$600 for it, so why not? So I mean they got their bang for the buck because the books back then sold a lot of books. Like you sold a lot of copies back then, but how it works now is like the sales are so low and a lot of the people they're hiring are really just like some randoms, and then you got a few good guys that are still around, but they're not paying them remotely as much, so you can probably make like decent like $200 on a page.
Well, because if I remember correctly, the last time I talked to Romita when he was doing Kick-Ass.
Well, indie books are different, but that was actually a pretty big budget.
Yeah, he was pulling 75 to 100 depending on the layout.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the times now what they do is they'll get guys from like foreign countries. Like that's the big thing because then it's just like they could just pay them like a third of the rate. It's just how it is.
Or these fucking SJWs who can't draw for shit.
Yeah, a lot of them come from what was it? Fucking like young adult novels and shit, like those kind of people, or they come from. I mean, here's like there is a place for them. I'm one of those people. It's like, look, there is a place for those people in comics. There's a place for pretty much anyone who can bring some sort of. If you could bring something to the table, then you definitely deserve to be at the table. So yeah, SJW or otherwise, you're fine as long as you're actually doing the work. If you're just sitting there and bitching on Twitter all day, because that's the big thing. You've had some of the biggest people in comics who people would say not a bad thing about, right? Like someone like a Dan Slott. Like Dan Slott, when I met him, he was an awesome fucking dude. Like he was actually really cool to me.
Yeah.
He currently blocks me on Twitter.
Oh, see how you are?
Yeah, so it's just like one of those things where it's like when I met him, it was like 15 years ago. Like it was a long time ago, and it was like he nicest fucking dude. But then when you put people on Twitter, it's sort of like unfiltered bullshit that comes spewing out of people on that platform because you don't have a filter there. So it's like when you're doing a convention, you kind of have to be nice, sort of. You kind of, because you're trying to do the PR thing, you're trying to sell your shit, you're trying to do your thing. But when you're on Twitter and it's like 3 a.m. and you're just mad at something, it's real easy to tell people to go fuck themselves.
What did you get? Did you read any of the America Chavez?
Nah, just wasn't interested.
Holy fuck, was that bad art?
Oh, I know it was incredibly bad, and but it was one of those things where it was like, because that's the thing, I see it and I'm like, when I see like a lot of people, they rail against the SJW books, I'm like, yeah, but like, I kind of let the market decide on that one, and they did, and they didn't like it, so it stopped.
Well, like, here's the thing. What is it? Is it 7 or 8 times that they've rebooted Ms. Marvel / Captain Marvel?
Yeah, but a lot of that is mostly because of the low sales. Number 1 issues sell more than number 5 issues, at that point. Yeah, so rebooting so often, even if it sucks, people will buy a number 1 comic with a special cover on it. Yeah, because people are fucking stupid. So you're gonna sell more copies of a number 1 than you will a later issue of it, because you're gonna have that drop off where like you hit issue 2, half the people that bought issue 1 are not gonna follow you to issue 2.
Well, yeah, the like when I ran a comic book store, the trend was if you're buying 100 issues of number 1, then you buy 50 issues of number 2.
Yeah, it was always
cut it.
Yeah, it's always the case. You always have to cut it by half, like every fucking time. Because by the time you get to like issue 10, it's like you're lucky if you sell 3 of them.
And and if people want a little trivia, it is infinitely easier if you're going back to buy back issues. It's a lot easier to get a number 1 than it is to get a number 2.
Yeah. So if you're looking for those rare things, because I mean that's the thing is people look at that stuff and they're like, oh, like it's gonna be worth money someday, and it's like we learned from the '90s that that's not fucking true. Because back in the '90s they were printing like 5 million copies of fucking X-Men number 1, and it got to the point where like now you can't, like they're still sitting in bins somewhere in comic shops. Oh, just dusty fucking bins of like X-Men number 1 because they made 5 covers and they printed 5 million each one. Yeah, it's gonna be worth so much money, and it's like you're lucky if you get a quarter for it.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we're definite fucking nickel penny bin, at that point.
Oh yeah, I spent quite a bit of time and effort picking up all the Atlas comic books from the 70s.
Yeah,
and good God, did people just had no respect for it whatsoever. It was pretty easy. The most I ever paid for a back issue was like $10.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of it where they lost their way was when they stopped, like Marvel, how it used to be. For me, like when I was reading a lot of stuff, you'd read like the Stan soapbox stuff, where it wasn't like an editor or a publisher like bullshitting you and like throwing you, like ad copy. It wasn't something like that. It was literally a guy talking to you like he was your friend, and he was like, "Hey, man, like,
hey there, true believer.
Here's this thing I want to talk about." And he'll go on for a couple paragraphs, and then maybe he'll throw a promo in there, but like he'll actually give you a little bit of a life lesson. It's just kind of it's like a cool uncle that would just kind of come by, and you had that. But then you also had like people talk about that like that's a main thing, but there's a lot more to it than that. There was a whole aspect of Marvel where they actively included you in things. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna throw you an ad. It was like, hey, you might like this book if you try it out or whatever. Like, oh yeah, we got Doctor Strange coming in this book, and it seems like a cool idea. Maybe you'll like it. But it's kind of like a buddy suggesting shit to you.
Yeah,
and then they had
yeah,
the what was up.
It felt a lot like joining a club, an exclusive club.
Well, they had back then. They had the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Oh yeah, I had that record for the longest time, dude.
Dude, the most hilarious thing was when they did the Lego Marvel game. Like on PS4, I got it on PS4, and when you clicked over to it, you know what it played?
No.
The Merry Marvel Marching Society song.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm like, that is a fucking great fucking ad, because that was one of those things where it was like that is fucking Marvel. Like the little record where they sit there and they do all that weird backstage, skits about, like, hey, where'd Steve Ditko go? He jumped out the fucking window.
Yeah.
Just like all this stuff. And it was like, yeah, like this is really awesome. Like, you felt like you were part of this. It was like a family kind of aspect to it. And I always kind of wanted to bring that back to comics in some small way, through a lot of things. Like, I might be doing a horror book or something like that, or I might be doing something with this, and it's like, yeah, it might be more mature and everything, but at the same time, I want it to be, it's one of those things where it's like, it's very odd to say inclusive now, because people think, oh, you're gonna force diversity and all this stuff in it. But me, I'm like, you could be inclusive without being a shithead, and that's kind of what I want to bring back that inclusive spirit that was Marvel in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. Like that, it's like, yeah, they're a business. They need to make money, but at the same time, they seem to give a shit about like the people that are reading the books.
Well, and honestly, isn't that what the YouTube connection is as well? It feels a little like exclusivity, but it's more of inclusion.
Yeah, it's why like the way like Morning Decay, like the style that I use for that is I'm kind of in a way emulating a bit of that, a little bit of that spirit with the stuff. Like when when Stanley died, I was really fucked up. It was like the rest of the day I was like, oh god damn. So I did kind of a tribute, but it was one of those things where like I felt I was terrible at it, but because I really couldn't sort the way I was feeling, because a lot of the things that I was doing on the show, in a way, like what I was specifically doing was kind of being that Stan soapbox. I might have been talking about dumb, fucked up shit, or something that might have offended somebody at some point or another. But at the same time, it was like, hey, we're all kind of like here, just hanging out, and we're all buddies, that kind of thing.
But you were feeling the homage.
Yeah, because like I'm like, me as an artist, it was one of those things where it's like I wanted to do more with that, because it's like, it's more than just drawing a panel. It's more than just drawing a character.
Oh, dude,
it's about doing that thing to where you can spread that love of what you do to other people, even if it's something really fucking stupid. It's like somebody like Moose Tank. People attached to Moose Tank, and it was so stupid.
But it's funny.
It was like one of those things. I'm like, it made people happy, and I'm like, that's fucking awesome. If it's something, even if I don't even understand it, I'm like, as long as it makes someone happy and they feel included in something. Like if I draw something that someone says in a chat, or someone tells me something on Twitter and I decide to draw it, or if Broski just randomly says something, I'll just go, I gotta draw that. Like it's one of those things where like you're including people and having them be a part of that whole thing, which was very much what I was pretty much taught with like old Marvel comics, reading them in like 1983, 84, was like, yeah, like this is how things should be. And seeing the industry the way it is now, it makes me fucking sad.
It does. I will be honest with you. I have not read a comic off the shelf since 1996.
I mean, essentially, Twitter destroyed the modern comic book industry, because it's a lot of these. It's
really
a lot of these shit. Well, if you look at it, it's like a lot of these people that were like really goddamn great, who focused on making great stories. You had your Dan Slotts, who had like a really long run, and he was really good with Spider-Man. Like he was really fucking good at certain points. But then as their Twitter presence grows, and the more they're there at like fucking 2 a.m. just being absolute shitbags to people, it becomes a thing where a lot of these people, like a Mark Wade was fucking awesome on the fucking Flash. I loved his fucking Flash.
Yeah, that was definitely a good run, but God damn,
now he can't write a book to save his fucking life because he sat around on fucking in forums and in fucking on Twitter and all these social media things, mostly just grandstanding and being a fucking dickbag about stuff instead of, I don't know, maybe writing a second draft to that book there, bud.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather would call it peacocking.
Yeah, and it's like that's what it's become. It's all these people virtue signaling and doing all this bullshit instead of doing their fucking jobs. And that's what always disgusted me about the modern comic book industry and why it's like people are like, oh yeah, it can never really die. It's like, no, it can die very easily because if you look at it right now, Marvel is shifting themselves into a lifestyle brand instead of a comic book company. There's a point where Disney's going to go, yeah, we're not going to spend money doing this shit anymore, so we're just going to use it as an IP farm and do cooking shows on YouTube. Yeah. DC's already started doing it.
Yeah,
like they're all transitioning out of that business because they completely ruined it by the personnel that they have.
By the way, Ray Stone chimes in saying, have you considered doing a cover for Morning Decay as Morning Decay 2099?
That's actually a really cool idea.
That is. That's pretty badass.
Just make the most edgiest, shitty 90s thing I could possibly come up with, but make it all like, hey, look, it's the future, so everything's neon.
Well, plus, I want to see you guys armored up because everything in 2099, everybody's fucking armored up.
Oh, it made me think of like Ghost Rider 2099.
Yeah.
I really like the art style on that. Like the one of my favorite artists is Chris Bacalo. He did a book called Shade the Changing Man, which was huge for me in the fucking 90s. There was Shade the Changing Man. He did Ghost Rider 2099. He did a bunch of X-Men, but like my favorite stuff was he did Death, the High Cost of Living, and the sequel series for that. He just had a very just odd art style that just it worked for the time. Like that's like one of my main artists that I think about in comics is like the stuff that guy does, and he does really, it's one of those things like he could do that slick like X-Men book, or he could do a Spider-Man book, and it's like it looks pretty goddamn good. But then you see him do something like really out there, like the Shade of Changing Man stuff, where it's just like it's like weird surrealist nightmare shit, and you're like, all right, this is fucking cool, So
now as a writer myself,
yes.
I would love to have, if I'm doing a comic book, one of the people that I would love to have doing the book for me is Kevin O'Neill.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think he's amazing and he's got that techno stuff down. But let me flip the script. You're doing the art. Who's the writer you want?
The writer I want?
And you
Someone
can't say me
dead.
because you've never read anything by me.
All right. Well, I mean, Frank Miller before he went crazy is probably one. So Frank Miller pre-1987.
Basically, once he did Sin City and then lost his fucking mind.
Oh, Sin City, he was already kind of going at that point because I mean, come on, that yellow bastard.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought he was kind of ripping off Chaykin at that point.
Yeah, a little bit. But that was the thing. A lot of people, like they don't give Chaykin enough credit, but like a lot of people like bit off a lot of stuff from his work.
American Flag.
Yeah,
mind blowing.
Some great fucking shit there. I mean, everyone should check that book out. American Flag is fucking awesome. American Flag with 2 G's.
Yes,
it's fucking great from Howard Chaykin. Great fucking books. Well, I'm trying to think of a writer.
And don't say Chris Claremont.
No. I mean, here's the thing. Chris Claremont's a really nice guy. Like I met him, and it was really weird because it was like You expect a guy that is like, yeah, I wrote the Dark Phoenix saga, motherfucker. Everything they're doing is based on my work. But he's like the most humble and nice fucking dude you could ever fucking meet.
That's exactly what I was going to say. When I met him, he was a total sweetheart.
He's like this little old guy. He's like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, I'm doing all right. I'm like, oh shit. Like you just want to give him a donut, you know?
Like when I met George Perez. He had every opportunity just to whip that dick out and say, how badass am I? And he was just like incredibly humble.
And his fucking shirts, dude. His shirts are fucking amazing.
Oh, hell yeah.
Man. But getting back to your question, though, the thing about the writer, I would think maybe Peter Milligan would be a good one. Grant Morrison would be an obvious fucking choice, but like, but if we're talking modern people, Gerard Way is actually really fucking good. People that like, the My Chemical Romance dude. He's been doing comics for a little while now, and he's actually really good.
Well, as long as you didn't say Raven, because good God, that fucking Spider-Man book he did was shit.
Yeah.
But how about?
Well, CM Punk did one that was worse. So.
Oh God, see, I didn't even want to bring that up. But what about somebody in the realm like Peter David?
Oh, but it's like one of those things. Peter David. I really like his stuff, but it's one of those things where I'm like, if he handed me a script, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. Because like the dude is insanely fucking good and insanely precise about his stuff, and I'm like I don't like you need the right guy. You need like a George Perez working with him.
Well, it's funny because I'm trying to blackmail him onto the show. I did an interview. I used to do a cable access show back in like '88.
Yeah,
and I interviewed him full length. And I'm like, hey, if you want this interview, I can digitize it and send it to you, but you got to come on my show.
That's a good one, dude. I hope it works out, man, because he's actually really. It's one of those things where people in the '90s had this weird perception, but it was mostly because Todd McFarlane was being a dick. remember when they had that big debate?
Oh yeah.
One of the more chicken suit.
Oh God, yes.
They had like these big debates and shit at comic conventions, and it was fucking hysterical because it was like, I mean, here's like Peter Day was right the whole time because the pendulum shifted completely back around because it was always like, oh, it's the art or the writing, that's really good in comics. It's like, yeah, but eventually the '90s ended and they were like, we want actual stuff to read that's like actually like good.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like if you having good or bad art, like you could make or break a book doing that, but if the writing is bad and the art's really fucking good, it's still a shitty book.
But I tell you what, with the '90s, it definitely got over though. I mean, there were some really, really just apocryphal X-Men books that came out. I mean, the writing was completely shit, but you had good art.
Well, that was after Claremont left.
Yeah.
After they went, hey Claremont, you have no use to us anymore. Goodbye. They put him on like Excalibur and just forgot about him.
Oh, Metaforce brings up Dave Sim. I love Dave Sim.
I have I have a funny fucking story. Dave Sim doesn't really do a lot of internet stuff. Like he's very disconnected to a lot of this stuff. And Neil Gaiman, one day, like at the time I was doing stuff, and I'm like, hey, like, I see this post by Neil Gaiman, and he goes, hey, Dave Sim is bored. He's bored right now and would like some letters sent to him. So send him whatever you want. And he gave an address. So what I did was I wrote to Dave Sim, and I wrote this whole thing of like what I was doing, like how I wanted to make comics and like all this stuff, and and like things I've done in the past because like people I've worked with and that kind of stuff. It was a lot of little things here and there, and then I sent him a bunch of stuff that I made, like because I made like comics, like older comics, and I still had some shit. So I was like, I'm just gonna send him like a care package.
Was it like Cerebus stuff or what?
No, it was just some original stuff, some spec stuff that I did for remember the DC tryout books?
Oh yeah.
I did those. I sent a bunch of stuff over, and it was one of those things where because back then what you used to do is you used to fill them out, and if they accepted you, you didn't take the job.
Yeah.
Because it was like, hey, because they'll kind of accept anybody if you're competent enough. So it was an accomplishment to just go, hey, I did it, and then I told them to go fuck themselves, which is what Darwin Cook did.
Yeah, that's the whole Giordano thing when he was like, oh yeah, you can write some stuff for us, and I was like, yeah, bullshit. And then he's like, I sent him a letter because back then it was still letters and not emails. And
well, you have to remember back then, back in the day, Jim Shooter, how he got his first job in comics was because he yelled at them in letters columns.
Oh, yeah.
He would send them letters correcting them about shit, and they just went, okay, if you're so fucking smart, why don't you write a fucking... Like, it was a Legion. He really liked Legion, but he would always point out the errors, and he goes, if you're so adamant about this, why don't you write an issue of Legion? And him at 14 years old got the job at DC and wrote a pretty good run of Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great fucking thing, but... The thing with Dave Sim was I sent him all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to send him a care pack. I sent him some candy too because I was just a dickhead. And so I sent him this bunch of stuff, and I don't hear anything back, right? And then I get sent a copy of Cerebus. It was one of the issues from Mothers and Daughters. It was the one that in particular had the parody of Sandman in it.
Oh my God.
And what he did was he wrote a giant paragraph in halfway indiscernible handwriting. He wrote a paragraph right across the cover in ballpoint pen. Like he fucking half wrecked the fucking comic, right? So you talk like any value there's not there, but he writes this whole big personal, like he basically wrote a letter back on the front of the comic, right? And then he's just like, hey, like you're late started in the business, and I'm like, I've been doing it since I was 12. Okay. Well, good luck and everything. I hope everything works out and everything's all great. And everything. It was a whole big it was sort of like one of those things where it's just like, yeah, okay, kid. Like kind of one of those letters. But he's really nice about it, and he writes it all across the front cover, and then he signs it. A couple years later, it was a book tour for. Neil Gaiman was doing a book tour for a book that he did it like 5 years ago. And I go up to him and I put that comic in front of him with the big giant Dave Sim letter.
Nice.
And he's like, why? Because everyone else is handing him copies of the new book he put out or like some Sandman books or something like that. I put this fucking copy of Cerebus that's kind of because I framed it, but it's framed really shittily, so it's like it's a little beat up or whatever. So it's like I take this thing, I take it all the way to fucking Manhattan, and I throw it on the fucking table. And at that time, it was after I was at an Amanda Palmer show, and someone actually, this drunk dude, hung on Neil Gaiman, like he was trying to go past people, and this drunk dude like grabs him, and I actually kind of saved him from the drunk. And it was a weird fucking time. I'm not gonna go into that whole giant it's a big story, someday I'll tell it, but it was one of those things where like he actually was very thankful for it. And when I hand him the fucking comic, he's like, why? And then he looks up and he's like, he kind of recognizes me, and I'm like, all right, because this wasn't that long afterwards. And I'm like, well, you told me to write Dave Sim, so I did, and I sent him some stuff, and he sent me this. I don't know why, but he did. Like I was kind of like acting all bewildered and everything, and he goes, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and then he signs it, and he's just like, he reads the message, he laughs to himself, and then he signs it. And he hands it back to me, and I'm like, it's like, if you don't remember, because I noticed you recognize me. I was the guy who saved you from a drunk. And he's like, yeah, you did. Thanks, man. I was like, all right, cool. And everyone looked at me like I was a giant fucking asshole. And I was like, all right, cool. So, I fucking, that was a pretty good fucking day. Just doing that. Because it was like,
give me 3 names of artists right now in the business that you think are completely underrated.
Oh. Wow. wow. It's a lot of I can't fucking. I really could. Well, John Malin is definitely one.
Oh,
like he was a guy who, you know, he had that job at Marvel. He had that pinnacle of all that stuff, and then you know, politics got in the way, and they, you know, they canned his ass like off of Cable, which was actually a really good run of it. You know, like he's really great. There's a guy.
That run of Cable was beautiful. And didn't he do Youngblood too?
I think he might have. I wasn't really following Youngblood, so I mean he may have. But like I actually just got Jawbreakers in the mail like a week or two ago.
Oh damn, tell me. You got to tell me. How is it?
It's pretty good. It's actually a bunch of different stories. They did a remaster of the Jawbreakers 1 that he did like years ago. They did some other stuff, but like the actual main stuff with the John Malin artwork is fucking great. I do have one criticism though. There's a scene where it's a big splash page where it's the gorilla that they're going after. It's standing up when it should actually be hunched over. That was like my only one gripe, because I'm like, okay, like it's getting hit, and it's getting hit in a certain way where it's like eyes coming out and shit, and it's like all this stuff, but it's like standing straight up. And I'm like, an ape doesn't stand straight up like that. I don't know. That was the only gripe I had. Yeah, but past that, I'm like, it was fucking great.
Yeah, because I remember my introduction to Malin was him doing the Deadpool covers.
It was, and it turns out he's actually a really nice guy too, because I actually got to talk to him when I was on Finer Prince show. It was him, Jeremy Lin, the guy who does like the POTUS Thump stuff. He was there, and John Malin and Brett Smith, and they were all really nice guys.
I need to get Malin on the show.
Oh, just ask him. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll come on. I mean, he came on. You know, he shows up on random stuff. I don't know. He's a good dude like that, but he's pretty underrated. There's this dude who's doing a book called Sovereign that's on Indiegogo. I think his name's like David Huerta, something like that. I think that's how you say it. He is really, it's kind of like graffiti inspired, but like graffiti meets kind of a weird anime, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kind of artwork. It's really like fucked up and cool, and I'm like, I love that shit. And he's a dude that like just kind of came out of nowhere, and he's like, yeah, I'm doing a book. You know, and I'm like it's a lot of these guys who have Indiegogo stuff that like there's another one that I'm actually looking at right now that I'm gonna be supporting soon. Hold on, I'm actually trying to get the fucking. There's a book called Long Harbor. That's kind of like a H.P. Lovecraft kind of story.
Have not heard of it.
It's a new book. Hold on, I'm trying to get the actual. There's Alejandro Mirabal is a guy from Indonesia who's doing the artwork for it. Insane fucking artwork for it. That it's on Indiegogo right now, so it's one of those things. It's called Long Harbor. That's the book they're trying to fund. Definitely look that shit up. That stuff is insane. I'm like, I've never heard of this guy before.
I just pulled up Alejandro Mirabal. Good
Mirabal.
God.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I want to do.
Good.
Oh my
God.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like a lot of guys like that I'm. And here's the thing: right now, it's only a little above halfway funded, with 27 days left.
I'm broke, but I sure as hell would love to do that.
Well, I'm definitely jumping on that one, because I'm like shit, it's my fucking wheelhouse, dude. Because I'm like that's what I aspire to do, is that kind of shit.
Okay, now this is something that I definitely. This comes to the need to know. You are beloved with the comic book scene across the board. Your shit is awesome. Everybody grooves on it. They give you the opportunity to do one book. What book do you want to do?
I always kind of had a Neil Adams kind of idea about that, which was You go in and they go, okay, you could do whatever you want. And I go, what's the lowest selling garbage book you have? like what's the one that you're going to put on the chopping block that you're going to get rid of? Because that's the book that they're going to give you the most freedom on.
Sure.
Like, it's kind of like how Spider-Man happened. Spider-Man happened because there was a book called Amazing Fantasy that was getting canceled, and they didn't give a shit what they were going to put in that last issue.
Oh yeah, issue 15.
Yeah, so Stan Lee was just like, hey, I got this spider character. Like, he was called the Spider at the time. And the publisher's just like, nobody likes spiders. What's wrong with you? You know, like they were talking him down on it, and then they're just like, well, Amazing Fantasy's on that last issue. Do whatever the hell you want. Who cares? You know, whatever. You know, they're just throwing it out into the ether, and then that's where he put Spider-Man in it, and it became the thing that it became. But it was one of those things where that kind of stuck with me as a major thing. Like, it's how like Neil Adams got Batman, how he got, because Batman at the time was actually a really, like, the sales fucking crashed on that book.
Oh yeah.
After the 60s series ended, because they were doing like goofy Spider-Man, the goofy Batman comics and stuff. After that all crashed, he was just straight up like, all right, well, what's your lowest selling book? And it's like, right now it's fucking, you know, like Showcase is outselling Batman at this point. Like, who cares about Batman? And it's like, all right, I'll do that. And then what did he do? First thing he did, Batman's back doing stuff at night. He's not doing goofy adventures. He's actually, you know, solving crimes. He's doing this stuff, which led to the Englehart run and like all that really great shit that entailed.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't that start with Denny?
Well, it was Denny. It was Denny and Neil Adams.
Okay.
That was like the second part of their partnership that they were doing there, which led to them splitting off and doing Brave and the Bold.
Oh yeah.
Which was an incredible run.
I love Brave and the Bold.
It was a great like, it was one of those things where it's like that was a perfect fucking book for its time, because it actually did address issues that actually are happening now. It was a way of doing a sort of social justice comic. I know it's a taboo subject, you know, but like that social justice comic where you're really delving into, you know, issues of racism and you know, drugs and like inner city stuff and this thing and this, and doing all those things, but doing it in a way where it was still entertaining. And while they're teaching you shit, they're like actually kind of, I don't know, giving a shit about the actual like characters that are in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I mean, Green Arrow got a little preachy. He's a bit of a dickhead.
Well,
but,
yeah.
But that was the thing. That was the whole point, was you had stuffy fucking, you know, police cop, you know, from space, wacky dude, you know, doing this fucking thing where he's making, you know, constructs with his rings and shit. And here he is being like yelled at by a black guy while a guy liberals at him.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I mean, here's something. It worked for that. And at the time it was something like, you had, you know, the civil rights movement still going on at that point. So it was one of those things where it fit its time really perfectly, and it's still a good read today. Whereas a lot of the shit now is
yeah. I remember the whole thing about, you know, you're talking about the green man and the blue man, but what about the black man?
Which at that point, my response would have been, yeah, but you know, those purple men were gonna blow up your fucking house. So, you know, so yeah, I might have helped all these people that are all different things, but you know what, you still have, you know, what you have, because Space Cop did a thing. You dickhead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
you know.
now, is there any book out there right now that you would be able to recommend 100%?
Anything by Sean Gordon Murphy right now. Okay. I got really into his stuff. He did Batman White Knight, which was actually pretty good. So I would definitely suggest that, because that's a book you can get right now. Mr. Miracle, a little bit, but I kind of got back into Umbrella Academy. Like, I know there's a TV show, but I'm just not bothering with that, because who the fuck wants to look at Ellen Page being sad face all the time, you know, with a weird hairline. I don't want to deal with that. So I'm like, I'll read the comics because those are good.
Well, yeah, so, I mean,
there's another one, Cosmic Ghost Rider.
I have not read that one yet.
It's Punisher who made a deal with the devil, but is in space. So he's Ghost Rider in space, and he's a retard.
Wow, that's a reach.
Yeah, it's one of those really out there Marvel books where you're like, all right, this it's kind of like they're trying like a Deadpool kind of formula, but like, hey, it's Ghost Rider in space, but he's really the Punisher.
Oh, Jesus!
And he's gone insane.
I don't even know how to react to that one. Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly was there when they did the crush with. Okay, so we don't like the Fantastic Four. We're killing the book. Yeah. And that's what I haven't read anything but compendiums and trade paperbacks from the 80s and 90s.
Most modern stuff I probably wouldn't bother with. I mean, it's a lot of it's pretty bad, but there are some good things out there. You just really have to look a lot harder at it.
Well, I'm looking for some good indies. But there are a lot out there that aren't good. Well, it's just like Image is is just a factory of shit.
Well, there's one that you might be interested in. It's a book by Jim Cornette.
Really?
Yeah, what he did was it's him teamed up with some people to do his road stories. As a comic book, like him, like in the early '80s, like Junkyard Dog and shit, and like, you know, like the classic shit, like doing that stuff.
Honestly, I've sent him an invitation to come onto the show, and I legitimately, when I sent the email, said, I don't know if you could tell any or you can tell any stories that are original, but still, if you want a platform, come on.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to want to promo that comic book that he's doing. I'm like, I'll ask him, be like, hey, want to come on? Because I did it was a Kickstarter for the book. I jumped in on that one, so hopefully that'll be done soon, and you know, I'll have it in hand. Probably do a review of it on the show, something like that.
So, are you looking to actually get some celebs on?
If the opportunity arises, I absolutely would. Like, it was one of those things where I always had the idea of having guests on and stuff, and we had a few. I mean, not a lot, but I mean, you know, like we had like Nick Diorio on. You know, it was just like, hey, all right, come on in, because the kid was fucking funny. So it was like that. We had a good old time. You know, it's like, it's one of those things where I would like to do more of that, like get somebody in, you know, who's like known. I mean, I've asked around, but it mostly just got no. They were just like, hey, I do an art show early in the morning. It's like, I don't want to wake up for that bullshit. Fuck you.
Well, so you know, I can give you Bruce Campbell's cell number. He's not real happy when people call him on it.
Yeah, so I'll be sure to do that.
Dude,
hey, buddy.
What, I thought I was calling a production company.
Well, when Vader died, one of the things was you got me in contact with Stan Hansen. But he was busy as fuck, so that didn't exactly work out. But still, it was one of those things where it was a really weird fucking trip where I'm like, hey, like, you know, gonna go bother Stan Hansen today, because it could have happened, but he was like booked up like crazy.
Oh.
Especially with Vader dying, it was like, ooh, yeah, he did a whole lot of stuff.
Well, dude, I'm still trying to get Bill Eadie and Tracy Smothers on.
Oh, right on.
But yeah, that's
Bill Eadie, even at the height of his career, he always looked like he was somebody's dad. Like, he put on makeup and everything, and he's wearing the bondage gear, and you're just like, why is someone's dad dressed like what's wrong with him?
Well, he was a mass superstar.
I mean, in Demolition, it was like one of those things where it's like you have Axe and Smash, and you're like, all right, you have Smash, he just looks like a goddamn carny dude. Like, you're like, this guy, like, he's doing those faces, and he's all like, you know, who doing that fucking bit, and then you have fucking Bill Eadie, just like kind of like his dad that got talked into it. and he was mad at it.
Yeah, it's like, I gotta do this. All right, fuck it.
It's like this fucking guy right here. Oh man, no, I love it. Like he does interviews still wearing the makeup, so it's like really extra, like fucking sad and funny.
Oh yeah, I've seen him wearing the Masked Superstar mask too.
Yeah, it's a little weird when you see them like they're already retired. It's kind of like when Adam West used to go around with the like that, and the guy who played the Lone Ranger, like going around with the actual like mask on and shit.
Oh hell yeah!
Like in the '80s, to the point where like the companies had to sue them to stop doing it.
Oh, dude, do you ever remember Carl Casper's auto show?
No.
That thing used to tour the U.S.
Yeah, I never heard of that one.
Oh, okay, well, it's like you could get your picture taken next to the Dukes of Hazzard car or the Batman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now. Yeah, I've seen stuff similar to that where it's like, oh, it's a Back to the Future car, like whatever, like all the shit because they made like 5 of them.
Oh hell yeah! Like I got to meet Adam West, and goddamn, he was drunker than shit.
He was a happy dude.
Oh yeah, and what's his name? Oh goddamn, Clayton something, the original Lone Ranger.
Was it Clayton Moore?
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember when they made him when they sued him to take the mask off and he cried on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt really bad for him.
Yeah, I did have the ability to meet him too at a Carl Casper auto show.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those things were so weird. I mean, like that was the only thing my dad ever liked to take us to, and like we got to meet the Knight Rider car.
Did it talk to you?
It did. It had the what was the guy's name? I forget what it was, but they had it pre-programmed, and there were 5 different things that he could say.
Yeah, I don't know the actor's name on that one. It was but I remember he played Higgins in the what was it? The fucking I think it was no, it wasn't Higgins. Oh, what the fuck? Well, I know he was in Boy Meets World. He was in Boy Meets World though. He was Mr. Feeney.
Yeah, the thing that I remember was him in Saint Elsewhere.
Yeah. The show that existed only in a retarded child's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
William Daniels. That's who it was.
Oh, right on.
But they had a pre-record of it, so whenever you got close to the car, it would say like one of 5 phrases.
I would have loved it if it was like, okay, we'll do it like I remember they used to do trade shows where they would have the guy who is the voice of Mario, Charles Martinet, and they would run this really bad CG face, and he would be sitting behind a fucking thing doing the voice live for people. You just want him to just sit there and be like, have a few drinks during lunch and start calling people racial shit. just Mario just getting really racist. That would be fucking hilarious.
So now, if I can turn this, you're on YouTube. You're getting ready to celebrate your first anniversary. There are people in the chat who are trying to start up or have an idea about building a YouTube channel. What advice would you give them?
I would say pick another platform. There's really no growth on it's one of those things where YouTube is so dicey and everything to where like you don't know how the rules are going to change day to day. I mean, if you could put up with it, it's basically be aware of everything that's going on, because like YouTube will start banning people for like the dumbest shit. Just they'll change their rules just willy-nilly. So if you're gonna start up a thing and you're really hell bent on doing a YouTube channel, I can't really tell you anything about growth because things have been all over the place for my shit. But when you get to like seeing what's going on, really pay attention to it. Like when they change when they put out a video talking about their rule changes or anything, or like how their strike system works, be very aware of that, because you never know when like immediately something you're doing might be like considered wrong or fucked up or whatever, and they get rid of all your shit. Also, back up everything. because you never know, they might just suddenly delete your channel while you're asleep.
Oh yeah, we did an 8-hour stream, and apparently one of the 5 songs that we played, somebody didn't like, so it blocked it. But it only blocked it in the U.S., so I can't actually download it.
You can't, because usually you could just like, because I know I have like at least one episode banned for some bullshit, but it was like one of those things where like it got for something, and it allowed me to download it. But there's also another way to do it where if you could, I mean, you might need to VPN it or some shit like that, but like you get access to it, and what you use is like one of those like YouTube downloader app. I use a YouTube downloader app, and it's just like, oh, you want to download everything on this channel? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I'll just download all my shit and just put it on a drive and just put it somewhere else.
Oh yeah, it won't let me do it because it's on a block.
Yeah, that's why you do a VPN or have someone else do it for you, who's like not in that region that's blocked.
Pull up the onion.
Pretty much.
So now I know we're getting to the end time here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would like to make sure, because of course, one of my big things is the expression of flexing your pec, which is passion, effort, and commitment. Basically, loving what you do, making sure that you're expending the effort to do it, and being willing to see it to the very end. People out here right now listening, if you're flexing your pec, what do you need to tell them?
That's kind of a loaded question for me, because I'm like, I don't really know. I'm mostly just kind of go by whims at this point. It's just wherever that shit takes me at this point. I approach all of this stuff where I'm like, I don't have a serious business plan, or like I don't have like a 5-year goal or anything. I don't even have a 1-year goal. I'm just like, hey, if I'm still doing it and it's working, then great.
Mm-hmm.
But past that, I'm just like, hey, if I feel like doing whatever dumb bullshit today, I'll just go do it. And that's kind of just where it all just it's one of those things where like maybe you don't take this internet shit too seriously, like at all, because there's a lot of people who really kind of got it all up their ass, where they're just where that becomes their reality, and it's not a good way to live. So like once in a while, maybe go outside. It's there's that whole idea of like where you express your passion for the stuff, but at the same time, you should also know when to go do something else and make your fun in other ways, to where it's not just this one. Don't put all your shit in one basket with this.
Never forget your IRL.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where like even if I have a day where I'm just sitting there and I'm just like bullshitting with people, or I'm coming up with ideas or doing all this stuff, I will at least take time out of every goddamn day to at least say hi to my wife. Because It's like, because at the end of the day, when all this shit's turned off, and when I have everything shut down, and I'm just fucking done, and I'm exhausted with the fucking day, at the end of the day, you gotta maintain at least some semblance of normalcy in some way, because nothing I do is normal. It's always something fucking, because I'm a fucking weirdo and doing internet bullshit, and it's a lot of strange characters every day, and once all that goes away, you have to start dealing with yourself. You start hearing the thoughts in your own head.
Oh yeah,
the brain that doesn't shut off, that kind of thing that'll drive you insane. Like you'll sit there and you'll sit up there at night not knowing what to do with yourself because you're not doing the thing that you're doing. And that's when you should know that you kind of went a little too far, and you should kind of refocus yourself on maintaining some sort of at least one proper human connection. It doesn't have to be a spouse, doesn't have to be a girlfriend. It just could be like anybody. Just be like, hey, I'm gonna go get fucking coffee with like my neighbor. Who gives a shit? As long as it's something that would be, because I don't know. It's I've seen a lot of lives get fucked up with all this internet shit. So it's it's one thing to have that passion to do all this stuff and create all these things, but it's another to not be such a fuck up all the time.
Well, sure. Completely understandable. And, of course, let's go ahead and get a wrap here because we got to let Optic get some rest. So,
Yeah.
Rob's links are located down in the descriptor. Of course, there's his Twitter, the YouTube, and the TeePublic.
And I don't talk remotely as much on my own channel.
Well, it's, I tell you what, we have a mission to shill on Doctor on Call because of the fact that if people don't know, if they're not hooked up with it, they really need to be. And they can make their judgments later on. But, of course, you have to try it before you buy it. And, of course, on the YouTubes, everything is technically for free. Unless you're doing RedTube, but that's a completely different story. Of course, there's also my links down there for Twitter, for the Streamlabs, if you like what I'm doing, for my Patreon, and, of course, for the DocGriffon TeePublic store, where if you're looking for the best in bootleg medical merchandise, then look no further than the DocGriffon TeePublic store. And then under that, of course, is the prescription for additional entertainment. These are people I like, these are people that I support, and these are people that I think you should give a roll. And give them a shot. See if you like what you hear, and if you do, do the like and sub. And, of course, I want to make sure and give you the last word on this. Rob, if you're going to encourage anybody, what would you like to say to them?
I'm not going to show you my penis.
Duh.
I don't know. That's kind of all I have right now. I'm tired, man. I'm doped up.
Well, I can understand that. And, yes.
Yeah, I've been sick for a fucking week, dude. It sucks.
Well, and we do appreciate you coming on tonight. And, of course, going to finish up the wrap up here. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. Next week, we have coming on Ichabod Orange. And
right on.
just to tempt you, I'll only give you 2 weeks. The week after that, we are going to be talking with MMA fighter Tara LaRosa.
Nice.
And that should be a good time had by all. And to wrap everything up, once again, the prognosis looks good. I don't think there's a diagnosis for any type of prescription or any type of diet or medication to take care of Optic Decay's woes because, of course, Rob is cruising along and having a good time as he is doing it. So
Big things ahead.
So take a look, take a watch with Morning Decay. Please enjoy yourselves while you're doing it. I am more than happy to suggest any type of feedback, especially since my DMs are open. Any suggestions that you have for guests, I am more than happy to take a look at. But for tonight, we would like to thank our guest, Rob LeBlanc. And once again, thank you, chat, for showing up. And this is DocGriffon saying, the doctor's office is now closed.